Hi, this video will explore Manhattanville's history as an educational institution. This is the first part of a two-part series. Manhattanville's story begins over 180 years ago. In that time, our identity and mission has evolved. The history of Manhattanville is a micro-history of a much larger story, through which you can examine the history of the United States, higher education, women's education, and societal change over time. To start at the very beginning, Manhattanville University traces itself to an Academy of the Sacred Heart, founded in 1841 on the Lower East Side of New York City. The Academy was founded and led by the Religious of the Sacred Heart, or the RSCJs for short, a Catholic religious order of nuns whose mission was to educate girls in an era when females were not educated to the same extent. The curriculum had a liberal arts focus, with classes in philosophy, religion, history, literature, and modern language. In 1847, the Academy moved to Manhattanville, a farming village in the northern end of Manhattan Island. The deed notes the property was 8 miles north of New York City. As this 1840 map of Manhattan shows, New York City was still south of Union Square. Between the city and the village of Manhattanville laid 8 miles of towns, farmland, and private estates. The Academy was a boarding school with approximately 300 students. Given the social realities of the 19th century and the cost of private education, Sacred Heart Academies educated girls predominantly from the upper classes. This is made clear in an early advertisement of the school, which states the education of young ladies of the higher class being the special object of this institution. Difference of religion is no obstacle to the admission of young ladies, provided they be willing to conform to the general regulations of the school. The Religious of the Sacred Heart also ran a free school on the same property to 300 neighborhood children. From the very beginning, the Manhattanville student body was made up of students from all over the world, in particular Central and South America. On the right are some examples from the Home Address Registry during the 1880s. This includes students from Brazil, Cuba, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, and Venezuela. In August 1888, a workman left an oil lamp burning in the tower of the main building, and the Academy burned to the ground. Thankfully, no one was injured. The press coverage from the time offers us a unique glimpse into the reputation of the school in New York City. The morning after the fire, the newspaper The World wrote, "The Academy was the pride of the diocese, loved not only for its sacred associations, but for the solidity and thoroughness of the methods employed in its secular as well as religious instruction." The Sisters of the Sacred Heart decided to rebuild on the same foundation. The new building was completed in 1890. The archives have some wonderful scrapbooks that give us a glimpse into daily life as a student at the Academy. Alumni would reflect on this period of their lives as being unique. This was a time when they were pushed academically and creatively in an institution run by women, which was very unusual for the time. By the late 1880s, students could opt to stay on at Manhattanville for 2 additional years of study after completing the high school diploma. This was college-level coursework, but not accredited. By 1915, more women were going to college, but there were very few Catholic women's colleges. Other Sacred Heart Academies added on junior colleges with 2-year degrees. However, at the time, New York State only accredited 4-year colleges. Therefore, Manhattanville decided to become the first 4-year college in the Sacred Heart system. After several years of hard work, Manhattanville was granted a provisional charter in 1917 and an absolute charter in 1919 to grant 4-year undergraduate degrees to women. This image shows our very first commencement, the class of 1918, Claire Smith and Madeline Brassel. The college started out small. The first few years there were fewer than 100 students. By the 1930s, the college had about 400 students. In 1935, Manhattanville was accredited by the Association of American Universities, an honor shared by just 12% of colleges at the time. In 1937, trustees approved changing the name officially from the College of the Sacred Heart to Manhattanville College of the Sacred Heart, formally taking on the name that the school had long been known by. As the college transformed, so did the area around them. During the late 1800s and early 1900s, New York City was the entry point for millions of immigrants from around the world. The city now covered all of Manhattan. The village of Manhattanville had become a racially and ethnically diverse neighborhood on the Upper West Side bordering Harlem. Also moving to New York were Black Americans from the South. This was part of the Great Migration, when 6 million Black Americans moved out of the South. They were leaving behind Jim Crow segregation laws and the constant threat of racially motivated violence. They believed there would be less racism and more opportunity in other areas of the country. However, upon their arrival in these areas, they were met with continued discrimination and de facto segregated neighborhoods. Due to de facto segregation, by 1930, Harlem was a predominantly Black neighborhood. This movement of people acted as a catalyst to what we now call the Harlem Renaissance. This was an outpouring of poetry, literature, art, fashion, and music created by Black Americans reacting to their lived experience. Writers emerging from this period include Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Countee Cullen. The Jazz Age was born, introducing performers such as Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, and Josephine Baker. Manhattanville, located in an area sometimes called West Harlem, witnessed this cultural moment. A key part of the mission of Manhattanville, under the guidance of the Sisters of the Sacred Heart, was community involvement. In the early 1900s, Manhattanville alumni helped open the Barat Settlement and Casita Maria, volunteer organizations that helped recently arrived families with child care and connecting them to housing, healthcare, education, and other services. A big part of the Manhattanville student experience was working with these organizations. In 1933, the Manhattanville student body took a bold step, publishing the Manhattanville Resolutions. In them, students aligned Catholic principles with the cause for racial equality. Students vowed to engage actively with time and resources in what they called interracial justice. These resolutions were published in a number of periodicals and established the reputation of Manhattanville as a school willing to take a stand on racism. In February 1938, a priest named Father John Lafarge wrote to Manhattanville President Mother Damon. Lafarge was a Jesuit and was well known for his writings against anti-Semitism and racism. He argued against separate but equal segregation. Lafarge believed that economic and societal exploitation was the reason for racial disparities. Lafarge asked Mother Damon whether a Black student with all the qualifications necessary could be admitted to Manhattanville. The college had Hispanic and Asian students, but never an African American student. The events that follow are a fascinating time in Manhattanville history, and you can learn more about this chapter in other videos we have online. But here I'll keep it brief. Manhattanville students voted in favor of admitting the student. Once this was made public, a group of anonymous alumni sent out a mailer informing hundreds of alumni and families of the decision. Mother Damon started to receive mail. Some of it was very troubling. However, in total that spring, she received 20 negative reactions. She received far more positive letters, alumni noting they supported the decision. However, the negative letters really bothered Mother Damon. At that year's alumni reunion, she spoke for 45 minutes. This would later be known as the Principles versus Prejudices speech. In it, she notes that prejudices are common, but the point of education is to combat these prejudices. She stated, "It is natural for us to form prejudices. We grow up taking prejudices out of the air about us as we take up germs. Whereas the more we know of man's doing and thinking throughout time and throughout the world's extent, the more we understand that beauty and goodness and truth are not the monopoly of any age, nor of any group, nor of any race." That summer, Manhattanville published the speech in full in its alumni magazine. By the fall, it had gone viral by 1938 standards, being printed in other publications, including Opportunity Magazine, an academic journal published by the National Urban League. Over the next several months, Mother Damon received hundreds of letters from around the world, people who previously had no connection to Manhattanville but read the speech and wanted copies to share with others. Eventually, over 9,000 copies of her speech were printed. In the years that followed, Manhattanville continued supporting local artists of color. In April 1939, a young Richard Wright, who would later write Black Boy and Native Son, did a reading of his first book on the Manhattanville campus. We have a signed copy. Our rare book collection also has signed books from Harlem Renaissance figures Alan Locke, Langston Hughes, and Countee Cullen. Manhattanville became a leader for social action in higher education. The National Federation of Catholic College Students was founded at Manhattanville. Eventually, this organization grew to over 150 member colleges and played a role in the civil rights movement. Manhattanville began actively marketing themselves as a place where principle conquers prejudices every day. In this 1949 Catholic Digest article, they showcased students from Jamaica, Japan, the Philippines, Mexico, China, Korea, and India. The diversity of the student body is celebrated as a core mission and strength of the college. Social action became a major part of student life. Seen here, the Interracial Action Committee. Manhattanville also founded Interracial Justice Week, which spread to other colleges. This was a week every February, which would include such events as films, lectures, and discussions to encourage student engagement. During World War II, the U.S. experienced a nursing shortage both at home and abroad. Manhattanville answered the call for more trained nurses. The Aloysia Hardy School of Nursing opened in 1943 and graduated hundreds of nurses. Little did they know that another nursing school would open at Manhattanville a little over 70 years later. As the 1940s drew to a close, Manhattanville faced its biggest challenge yet. Their neighbors, City College, were desperately seeking to expand and asked the City of New York to get involved. After years of litigation, Manhattanville was forced to leave their beloved city campus for a new location. Join me for part 2 of our institutional history, which will pick up in Purchase, New York.